Oh, the vintage lyrics like dumps like a truck. Doesn't get much better as a lyricist than that. Yeah, we chose to bump in with the thong song for this segment. Not because of who's right around the corner, but because Dave Cook, I couldn't believe you told me you weren't sure you'd ever heard that song before.
Still not sure. But, I had...
you didn't get to the chorus. I didn't let it go long enough.
I had the celiac thing for 10 years. That may have fallen in there. Couldn't remember a thing.
I was going to say, that might be where the decade plus between us comes into play, because that was my grandma's sports garden heyday. That song was on loop.
I wasn't following you fast enough. You said that was my grandma's, and I'm like, wait, what?
No. Yes, grandmas and thong got into the same sentence, but maybe I'm just getting in power trip mode because Meatsauce is right around the corner. We've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, for months. We had a chance to meet the power trip guys here at the station and had a chance to visit with Sauce a little bit about, we were talking draft at the time, and this is going to be fun. I mean, I learned more about Paul Lambert, the sports guy, in that half hour, 45 minutes that we talked about than I've heard on a power trip. And so I'm excited to talk some sports here.
Well, we're about to hear him for about the next 15 or 20 minutes, so it gives me great pleasure to welcome in Paul Lambert, better known as Meatsauce on the Mothership. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you guys?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for being here, because one of the things that I'm looking forward to most is it feels like there's really no topic that's off limits, because when it comes to Minnesota sports, especially down in the Metro right now, there's a lot going on. I'm going to start with that. What's it like to just be around with the Lynx in full throttle, the Twins being a mess of epic proportions, the Vikings being perfect? This has got to be a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I said this yesterday on the power trip, when we as Minnesota sports fans, we've seen a ton of press conferences over our time. We've seen press conferences where players have been shipped out because, they just don't want to pay for them anymore. We've seen press conferences like the Kevin Garnett one, where they bring in basically 9 guys, 2 of which that played, and the rest are just to match salary. But the press conference we saw on Thursday morning with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo was something we haven't really seen around here, and that is swapping players for players that can win a championship. This team is better depth-wise now after they've made that Julius Randle trade. And you heard Julius Randle talk about on that press conference where it was basically like, yeah, we can win here. We can win a championship. And it's not like, when you draft the first overall pick and you go, well, I want to win championships. Well, your team's terrible, so that's not going to happen. This is not like this. It's weird that the Timberwolves are talked about in a championship sense.
Right.
And I know it's a preseason game, but we watched them last night. Rob Dillingham, the guy they took 8th overall, scored 21 points and just looked the part. And the 2 main guys, Randall and Edwards, didn't even play. It's sweet. The football team's 4-0. The Lynx are on to the WNBA Finals. Nobody gives a rip about the Twins. But,
including the Twins, by the way.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, which is, it's too early to get fired up about them. But yeah, they're just awful. And like I said, the Gopher football team has a chance tonight to knock off a very highly ranked football team in USC. So it's a fun time here in the metro area.
No question about that. So once you went down the Timberwolves rabbit hole, I'm going to go with you once you went there. I want to go with something Julius Randle said, because he said, I feel wanted here in Minnesota, and definitely he is. With the Cat trade, though, did you think that the idea of Cat being wanted here had just finally run its course? Because we've talked about should he stay or should he go for a long time, and the trigger was pulled last Friday night.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing because, like, that, Karl Anthony Towns was brought into this team when they were terrible. I mean, they won the number 1 overall pick for the first time. He's the last real attachment to the late, great Flip Saunders and the wonderful Saunders family. And it was something that I didn't think would happen at the time it did. I told Corey Cove from the Power Trip and John Bonus, who's on with us on Tuesdays, I said in May, they're going to trade Karl Anthony Towns. And I kind of forgot about it. The wife and I were up north, and she woke me up to tell me, and I'm not kidding you, I thought I was having a fever dream. It was so weird timing late on a Friday night. Oh,
yeah.
But it makes them a better team. Dante DiVincenzo was a stone-cold killer off the bench.
Right.
Julius Randle can play bully ball on the inside, and they're going back to like a power forward center look. But they obviously, the one key thing that we have to remember is they have one of the best players in the NBA in Anthony Edwards, who could be, according to some people, maybe the best ever. He's like 23, 24 years old. I know he's in his fifth season. It seems like only yesterday they drafted him number 1 overall. But this kid's an absolute stud, and as long as he stays healthy, they're NBA final champions. They have a chance every time he's on the court. So I think the trade made them deeper, and it doesn't force Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rod Dillingham, to come off or to have to be good right away. And I think they're going to be a very, very good basketball team.
See, this is all part of why I wanted Sauce on the show, because it might be too early to get fired up about certain things, but it's 10 after 11 in the morning. That's a great time to be fired up, because your Timberwolves soliloquy just got me there. I'm fired up about this team as well. But I want to go back to something you just said about the timing of the Towns trade. And this is actually going to segue to some Vikings talk, because you said the wife woke you up to tell you that it happened. I wanted to talk to you about that too, because Vikings beat the Packers last week. Your marriage is a house divided. You are married to a devout Packer fan. What's that been like, at least in the last 6 days, having the bragging rights for once?
It was fun because I give my mother-in-law all the credit. My wife was raised as a sports fan. She gets as into it as I do. And when the Vikings, my wife and I kind of have a house rule where when they aren't playing each other, I don't cheer against the Packers. The Packers have a lot of family meeting to my wife and all that.
Good for you, because I'd be divorced with that rule. Good for you.
No, I learned my lesson the hard way about 3 years ago when I cheered against them to lose and Tom Brady beat him in Lambeau. And I don't think she talked to me for like 48 hours. So if they're not playing the Vikings, I don't cheer for them, but I don't cheer against them, if that makes sense, because my brother gives me crap a lot about what happened to you. But it was good to see them win that game. I thought they were gonna kick that game away for sure. I didn't think they could hold on, but they did. I love that they're 4-0. The Pack are good, but I don't know why they gave Jordan Love all that money. And, Packer fans would say, well, he threw for over 300 yards and all those touchdowns. Yeah, but they were in just desperation mode the entire game, so he had to throw. But I do think that the Vikings are a real football team, and I think we'll learn that tomorrow when they beat the Jets.
I like that prognostication as well. Talking with Sauce, Meatsauce Paul Lambert, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. We are the Northland Sports Page. Dave, I know you had a great conversation with Paul when he was here. I'll let you chime in. I've been hogging the microphone.
Well, I've got actually for the Gopher USC game, Paul, I've got a guy that I want to see if you know anything about and talk a little bit about, and that is a guy that might fit in this Flores defense that plays for USC, and his name is Eric Gentry, a linebacker. He's 6'6", he's 215 pounds. He's built like a high school senior power forward, and it's going to be interesting to see that kind of build and speed in tonight's game.
Here we go. 2 draft bobos talking college products. Go ahead, Sauce.
That will be interesting. I'm also in favor of with the because I love the NFL draft. I've loved it since 1998 when the Vikings found their way to Randy Moss, and I know that's kind of a weird. Yeah, correct. I know it's kind of a weird way to cherry pick the draft, but I was 16, and I remember it came on, and I was like, "What?" I knew about it, but it wasn't like what it is now, where it was on Saturday mornings, and I remember the Vikings had the 21st overall pick, and they started it with talking about how the Cowboys were going to take Randy Moss. And then when I started to realize that, like, the subterfuge of the draft, I love it. The thing with this year's NFL draft is if I could find my way to Dexter Lawrence, the defensive tackle from the Giants, by giving up next year, if you truly believe that this team with the defense you have and the facilitator that you have in Sam Darnold can make a deep run, and that pick next year is in the top 25, and you have 2 more years of Dexter Lawrence, the New York Giants defensive tackle, I would find my way to that. I think the Vikings somehow make some sort of trade before the deadline because they realize this window is open, and they're going to try and I think they're going to go a little Rams on it and kind of move some of these picks around. We saw it last year. I think they have a first and a fifth round pick and then a sixth and a seventh round pick. They don't have a lot of picks in this draft, and I think they're going to find their way to not have a first round pick by moving it for some kind of defensive player before the trade deadline.
That would certainly be earth-shattering, but I've seen the Lawrence rumor more than once, so you might be onto something, certainly as we talk to Meatsauce Paul Lambert. Paul, I want to go back to a couple things you said at the outset. You talked about press conferences because it was a lead-in to the Timberwolves, and then you said nobody gives a rip about the Twins, and Dave Cook, you peppered in perfectly. It seems like the Twins don't give a rip about the Twins. But speaking of public comment, I'm in complete disbelief that Joe Pohlad said what he said about, I had to make a business decision and basically saying, screw you fans, I'd do it again. And then Royce Lewis saying, well, it looks like the cheap guys have to shoulder the burden. Are the Twins, if not already there, headed for dumpster fire status?
I think the issue with the Twins is, and the worst thing you can do in the world of sports, and Minneapolis is very blessed. The fans are some of the best and most loyal fans on the planet. But when you don't care, they don't care. It costs a lot of money to go to a Twins game. I use this analogy. I give this example, not analogy, but I'm not talking to Corey, so I don't have to worry about the words that
exactly. I'll back off.
Yeah, thank you. I use this example all the time. The wife and I were at a Twins game, and we were in I don't know what section it is. It's not the Delta Club, but we were lucky enough to be in one of those sections where somebody walked around and the guy had Neutrals, which is a seltzer, which I enjoy seltzers, which I'm fine with. And I bought one, and it was like $22 for a regular can. Now, if you are going to go to a Twins game and you're going to pay all this money, but then you get in there and you see the food it's hundreds of dollars just to get in the door with a family of four, right? But I think that what we're starting to see is people are going to not care. And if the Twins go through another off season of we're going to right size the payroll, which as Aaron Gleeman, who has a wonderful podcast with John Bonus Gleeman and the Geek, and they've ranted about it for months now. When you have seen that they have gone back to basically Metrodome payrolls, and they told us if we got them a stadium that they would make this team. We don't need them to go Yankees on it, but we just need them at some point to want to be competitive and when you cut $30 million off the payroll and then you see Blake Snell for the San Francisco Giants, although they didn't make the playoffs, you see him just light up the months of July and August from a pitching standpoint, and he was about $31 million. That's what we need. We don't need me on MLB The Show trading for nothing but all-stars.
Right.
We need to at least care. My point, though, is when they don't care, why should we care? And that's what it's going to take. I know a couple of friends of mine who have canceled their season tickets. John Creasel has very good seats. He's canceled those season tickets. There's no point in going when you think firing like 3 bench coaches is going to do the job. That would be like us firing Zach because the Power Trip had sinking ratings.
Oh, poor
That's
Helvey.
a huge part of the show, but it's not Zach's fault. It just doesn't make any sense. And they think that their public opinion is literally the lowest it could be. It's rock bottom. And nobody cares. And nobody will care when, they make some minor trades, and Royce Lewis, who was going to be a star, has now been terrible, and Brooks Lee is not that good. Unless they right-size the payroll the other way, but to come out in public and say, we're not going to – $30 million to them is like $5 to you and I. It's a rounding error. And if you as a billionaire don't think for a second that you making comments like that isn't – I don't care that people can't see it on TV. They have a beautiful ballpark, and it's going to be empty if they continue with the attitude they have.
No doubt about that. Positivity is one thing, negativity is another. The biggest fear will be the indifference.
Yep.
And Sauce, you mentioned you're not talking to Corey, so you don't have to clean everything up. I assure you, you will not get made fun of on this show, because right now it's just eerie to me how many things you've said that I would be like a bobblehead just nodding, because these are takes that I either share or have had on this show before. So I'm going to fanboy for just a moment, because one of the times, and there are a few that I'm very envious of you, is when you play the games on the mothership, whether it's Password or the Initials game. Which one do you find more difficult and why?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not good at password. I'm good at the initials game because when we were kids, we used to play that bar trivia.
Yeah.
And I've worked with Corey long enough. The initials game is hard because he's now made it like he's very good at like it when we play it on the air for a video game reference. It's on basically all Madden. When he's just so good at writing all those clues. And password is all dependent on your partner. I played the initials game. I would bet over 500 times, I think, because I think they played it 5-something, and I bet I've missed maybe 15 of them in my lifetime because
Sure.
I'm so honored and I'm so, I'm blessed that I get to play that game every Friday. But password is more intimidating. I'm not that good at it because password, I think, is a tougher game. Not that initials isn't hard. I've just played it more.
I would agree with that because I own one of the initials home games, and compared to playing along on the air, it feels like it's very much on novice or rookie mode with the home game. It's pretty easy. But speaking of easy, this chat with Meatsauce has been pretty easy. Dave Cook, go ahead.
Oh, it's been fantastic. Thanks again, Paul, for being here. You know, we've talked about this before, that the opposite of loving a team isn't hating it. It's not
the indifference.
all,
Yep.
right? It's indifference. But speaking of the Vikings, I wanted to ask you a question I asked earlier, and Brian says this is an easy answer, and it probably is, but I want to ask the question anyway. Over the past, look at Darnold's career, and there's no real reason for what we're seeing now, looking at his history. What's the difference in Sam Darnold today than he has been over his career?
Honestly, I think it's just coaching. When we've seen it a lot in this NFL season. Baker Mayfield was drafted to the Browns, and they were just okay. He went to Carolina, and that was a disaster. And then he went to the Rams because they needed a spot starter because Stafford got hurt, and now he's got good coaching. I think it's the same thing for Sam Darnold. I think it helps with the weapons. It helps with the offensive line and how well most of the Vikings offensive line is playing. But I think it's also just knowing that the coach has confidence in you. When you become a journeyman in anything, you just kind of lose your confidence. And I think Sam Darnold, for some reason, has found this just unbridled confidence that he just knows that he just has to facilitate the ball. He made a really bad play with that interception against the 49ers. That wasn't good. And then last week against the Pack, he held onto the ball too long for that strip sack. But other than that, he hasn't put them in any kind of bad situation. He's an MVP candidate. What does he have? 10 touchdowns, however many he has now. He just looks the part, and they have shown. And Kirk Cousins is a higher level version of Sam Darnold. But this offense just needs somebody to facilitate to these weapons. They'll get T.J. Hawkinson back most likely after the bye. That's another great weapon. And you're going to add that to a possibly 4-1, 5-0 football team. That's unbelievable. Not even halfway through the season, you're going to add that weapon. That's going to help. He just has to facilitate. A lot of it goes to Kevin O'Connell, who is one of, if not the best coach currently in the NFL.
See, now that is a tremendous answer. I agree with it. His was much more intelligent and intellectual. We were pressed for time when you asked me, and what did I say?
Yeah, you said, hey, it's coaching.
I said the answer is Kevin O'Connell.
Yep.
And that's exactly where Sauce started. So once again, here in the studio, I look like a bobblehead, just nodding and agreeing with everything Sauce has mentioned. But I want to ask you this, because we've talked about the Lynx, we've talked about the Wolves, we've talked about the Vikes, we've talked about the Twins. But Minnesota is the state of hockey. With the Wild, has the mediocrity just grown stale? Or are we all waiting a year to say, well, they'll have money again, then they'll get interesting?
Well, that's a great question. The thing with the Wild is they had to buy those contracts out, and then, of course, a couple of years later they changed the rule, but it doesn't affect us because that's the way sports work. I don't know, because they were just okay last year, and I think that they have to find a way to find, once they get money next summer, this season they have to make the playoffs. I think Bill Guerin is good at what he does, but I think he rests a lot on, like, hey, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can really do. And I think they have to find a way to make Kaprizov as happy as possible and go out and find him a weapon when they finally have money. The excuse of like, well, we don't have any money, so we can't spend it. That's fine. But once you have the money, you can't go into the Twins area. You can't just hold on to it like you're going to get bonused for not spending a billionaire's money.
Right.
They have to find a way to spend money. They have to find a way to I just think they have such Brock Faber is incredible. The kid they drafted from Denver is going to be good in it. Maybe in the spring when his college season at Denver is done. They have very good players. They just need some more offensive weapons, and I think Marco Rossi might be the number one center. He had kind of a tough time. It was around COVID and all that, but Marco Rossi is a silent assassin for them, and he could be a really good weapon for them.
I do like the talk of weapons. The New York Jets have a lot. The Minnesota Vikings have a lot. You've mentioned probably 5-0. I think you've said once tomorrow morning the Vikings will beat the Jets. Let's close with something as simple as that. Do they win, and by how much?
Yeah, they win, and I think they win. I think they win by 14. I think there's a lot of mutiny going on with the Jets. I don't like the head coach. I think they win 27-13.
I love that. And imagine mutiny and drama with the team led by Aaron Rodgers. Where have we heard that before?
Correct.
All right, Paul Lambert, this was a blast. Please, let's do this again because I loved every second of it.
Of course. Anytime, you let me know. I don't do much. I'm going downstairs to play video games.
Careful what you wish for, and I'll tell you what,
Paul.
I'm a little jealous of your Saturday now. Have a great weekend, my friend.
Yeah, you guys are the best. Thank you.
Appreciate it. That is Paul Lambert. That was a blast. I told you we would open up Pandora's box of sports. He could handle all of it. He did.
Absolutely. And again, Paul Lambert, the sports guy that we get to talk to, pretty deep.
I was going to say, Paul Lambert with sports intellect versus Meatsauce, the character. They may not be that different, but that is a smart sports mind right there.
100%. That was fun.
I'm buying everything he's selling. We're going to play buy or sell next. Stick around. We'll be right back. And what I want is about 30 more minutes of show. And lucky for me, that's what we've got. And speaking of lucky, that's definitely what we got, having Paul Lambert
great,
a moment ago.
it?
That was a good time.
Well, and because like you said, you can talk about anything. I mean, this is hopefully we can get Paul on regularly to talk about anything.
I was going to say, when we get Paul from the mothership based on this show's history, most people say, oh, PA's joining him again. Love that. Think I've got another Paul in the club.
I agree. 100%.
So we love what Paul Lambert, better known as Meatsauce, gave us. But again, I didn't ask him this. There would be two questions I'd love to ask him someday. Where did the Meatsauce nickname come from?
Superstar Mike
It
Morris.
is the alias, but I mean, why?
Oh, got it.
Is it because he likes béarnaise with his steak, or what happened in that sense? And then the other question would be,
Maybe he's A1.
Is Meatsauce more of a character than Paul Lambert? Because sports intellect, not lacking.
Yeah, no, not at all. And takes are great. That was fun.
So one of the shows that I podcast a lot is Saturdays with Sauce. We just got our own.
We did. And how cool is that? People that, whenever we first started and people were like, oh man, they're taking over that space. Maybe now we can provide a little snippet of it.
And what's helped us take over this space is a list of great sponsors. We want to pay homage to them as well.
Absolutely. Arola Architecture Studio is the OGs. Arola is the group that brought us through all the tough times, COVID and all that. He's never
the
wavered.
Godfather. He made us an offer we couldn't refuse.
Yeah, he's never wavered in his support, and we appreciate that. Hoops Brewing, ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota, and Kohler Hyundai. Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance. Assisted Living Locators. You can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson Bath and Kitchen, and the Blackwoods Group, including their locations in Proctor, in Two Harbors, Tavern on the Hill, up on the hill, and London Road location.
So we are very appreciative of our sponsors. That is a money list of sponsors.
Amen.
Go ahead and spend some money with our sponsors as we play buy or sell. The game works like this if you're new to it. Even if you're not, it still works like this. I'm going to give a statement for each of the four major sports leagues: MLB, NHL, NFL, and NBA. If Dave agrees with said statement, he's going to say buy, and he's going to tell me why. If Dave disagrees with said statement, he's going to say sell, and he's going to tell me why. Dave has two big responsibilities. Number one, his piping hot takes as to what he believes. Number two, and maybe this should be number one because it's chronologically first, tell me the order in which you'd like to play.
We're going to start with Major League Baseball.
All right, we are going to start with Major League Baseball, and I really tossed and turned over whether or not I should bring this one up because I do not want to speak ill of the dead. And we have talked about Pete Rose And you and I are on different sides of that proverbial coin. So I'm going to pose it like this. If Major League Baseball posthumously puts him in the Hall of Fame, does Major League Baseball look worse, buy or sell?
Okay, so I actually had this conversation on Friday. So
well, you're welcome. You got a pregame effort then.
I can let you know what I think. I think in today's society, the way today thinks, we're going to be enrolling him posthumously. And it's going to be the same weekend as Shoeless Joe Jackson, and we're going to try to right all the wrongs.
And that's when Barry and A-Rod and all those guys are going to go into
They'll be next.
All right.
Nope, they'll be next.
But answer the question. Is that a bad look or a good look for baseball?
So people your age and my age are going to think that's a terrible look. People Avery's age are going to think we finally did something good, so it'll be a good look. Like, I don't think it's either of those things. I think it's your point of view.
So if I said Major League Baseball looks bad if they do this, buy or sell, you say?
Major League Baseball will not look bad if they do this.
So
I
you're
disagree
selling.
with it, but I mean, I'm buying it personally, but I think societally, I'm selling.
Okay, can I buy that Major League Baseball will look bad, but also buy that they're doing the right thing? Mm-hmm. Because if it's up to Pete Rose's family now to accept an induction if it happens, there's a big part of me that wants to say, Rose family, tell Major League Baseball to stick it. Because who cares at this point? But at the same time, I do care because your hit king should be in the Hall of Fame as a player. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that. I understand what happened. I understand why people are against it.
I want to ask you this, though. Would you tell the Rose family before that to go talk to Shoeless Joe Jackson's family to see if they think the same thing? Because he's outlawed for exactly the same reason.
I wouldn't, because I just think it's a different animal. The reasons are the same, but the accomplishments are a little bit different. So Pete Rose should be there, has always been my take. But I'm going to eye roll if and when Major League Baseball does this, even though it's what they should do, because nothing changed. Pete Rose still did what he did. His stats haven't changed in forever because his career ended a long time ago. You just waited for the guy to die because you don't have to deal with him and any of his thoughts on it. You no longer have the fear of him getting on a podium and saying, well, this took a hell of a lot longer than it should have. You didn't change your opinion. Maybe the people voting did. The only thing that happened is the guy passed away.
And the voters have turned over. Like, so the people that have said no all the time, people my age, aren't voting as much anymore. And they're bringing in 20-year-olds and podcasters
that are obsessed with numbers, and Pete Rose checks every box.
And they will be the ones who say, well, Major League Baseball has betting ads in their pamphlets now. Right. They should be able to bet. Well, no, I disagree with that 1,000%. But the point is that I'm not the general populace anymore, right? And so I think they're going to do it, and I think they're going to say they've righted the wrongs. That's
you are not in the target audience anymore, right?
And I think that they're going to say, listen, we've righted the wrongs. Think about that sentence. We've righted wrongs for the last 5 years. And I'll just put it to baseball. Pete Rose will be in.
I will always believe that he should, but when he does, now because he's gone, I'm going to eye roll it, be happy for the family. But again, if it's up to the family, I kind of hope they go, what changed? You didn't want us before. But moving on, because we got 3 leagues to do,
we can do this
and you've got to get out the door. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to the NFL.
All right, so the NFL, bright and early tomorrow morning, the Vikes will kick off at 8:30 a.m. in London. Buy or sell that you're happy that the NFL continues its international series in London?
Well, I think London's going to get a football team, so I guess I'm fine with it. Again, I've come publicly and said, put one in Mexico City first, put one in Toronto first, because that's easy. But London makes sense. Like, if they've done this for 15 years now, and it's always sold, and so I think they're going to have a team. So I'm fine with it. My question was this: if they played a no account team if they played Tennessee there, would it be as big a draw as it is with the Jets because of the Aaron Rodgers?
Well, we're going to find out because I think Jacksonville's there twice coming up, and the worst team in the NFL right now is the Jaguars.
Yeah, like back-to-back weeks.
And I feel like Jacksonville's been the chosen one a time or two because fans weren't coming out, and it was kind of, well, we'll give you a look at our league, but we'll give you kind of the worst we have to offer.
And here's your team.
Right.
London Jaguars, be ready.
That would be interesting. I'm going to buy that I'm good with it too, and I'm going to individualize, personalize mine a little bit more because it has everything to do with me being in my mid-40s. Because if I posed this question to myself 20 years ago at age 25 and I spent Saturday night at Club du Jour, which would be a cool name for a club, by the way, if there isn't one, but I would get home at 2 o'clock in the morning and want to get up at 11 o'clock in the morning and have a game that involved one of my favorite teams be over, I'd be upset. Well, these days I'm perfectly awake well before 8:30, perfectly functional, and there's a big part of me that says, You mean that I can watch a game at 8:30 in the morning, followed by the normal slate of 12 p.m. games, followed by the normal slate of 3 p.m. games, followed by 7 p.m. Sunday Night Football? Sign me right up. I have no issue for that. The only people I feel for, but this is definition first world problems, if you're a season ticket holder, or even if you're somebody who just wants to go to a home game and there are less because a team, and in this case it's us, the Vikings, give up a home game to play in London, that kind of sucks, but I don't know that I pity the folks that can afford NFL season tickets, even though I used to have them.
Well, there's still plenty of people that buy them as a group, to split them amongst
Right.
each other.
Those are called corporations.
So, well, no, there's folks that go into it with their brother-in-law and whatever, and somebody's missing out.
So you split them and somebody got shorted.
Yeah, somebody got shorted.
But guess what? We did that when we had an odd number of games in a season anyway. So when the NFL goes to 18, we'll all figure that out.
Let's bounce to the National Hockey League.
I see what you did there. So there have been a lot of opinions. We just had some great ones from Paul Lambert, Meatsauce, about the Timberwolves cat trade. And the one person we didn't hear much from initially was the person we should have been most concerned with probably, and that's Anthony Edwards. Now, I think he was either misunderstood or purposely misconstrued this week, because when asked about it, he said, Cat was my brother. That was hard to hear. But then he said, I'm ready to roll with the guys that we have. While certain media outlets kind of chopped off that second part and went with the headline of Ant was hurt by Cat's departure. And yes and no is my response to that. But I think the intrigue is full of the fact that this is supposed to become Anthony Edwards' team, and I think it has. Yep. But buy or sell, do you think Ant will be better without Cat?
Ooh, that's a heck of a question. I think DiVincenzo is going to make him better. I think that he's going to have the ball more. But Cat is a 1A on many teams, and he just happened to be 1B on this one. And
I think 1B could also be known as 2 or 2.5.
Okay, but his skill set's going to be missed, no question. But you know what Ant's going to have? Adults. I mean, one of the best things that Jay ever said was Cat's biggest need is a life coach, right? I was going to say,
Justin May, Jay May's legacy on this show lives on thanks to Cat.
That part of it is gone, right? So Anthony Edwards not going to have to apologize and step in the way of questions for Karl Anthony Towns anymore. That being said, John Krasinski's article about the last day of Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota.
At the youth soccer game?
One of the best articles I've ever read.
I don't think you'll find a better character guy for this state in a long time. And we can say, mentally he was here and there on the floor. And personally, we know he went through hell. I don't think mentally as a person he ever wavered, and that was admirable.
What do you think of this? 32 is the next number in the rafters.
Boy, we'll see. I'm not going to think about any number in the rafters until they get 21 up there, and the ownership squabble needs to be settled for one, and then if it's Glenn again, a big squabble needs to be settled to get that up there.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's finish with hockey.
All right, so first of all, I'm going to give my opinion on that one because I didn't get to. I'm going to buy that Ant is going to be better without Cat because I don't think he's going to be left with much of a choice because they're basically saying, here are the keys to the proverbial car. But I also think some of what you said, Ant won't have to go on a mic and try to deflect and defer so bad. That this is Cat's team. I wanted to get my guy involved. Cat's going to carry us. No, you are.
Yeah.
And this isn't necessarily going to be like when Kevin Garnett wouldn't take the big shot in the fourth. I think Ant was more than willing to. Wasn't sure if he was supposed to. Now it's pretty obvious.
The pecking order is clear. It's Ant and then everybody else.
I was going to say there's Ant, a gap, and then you figure it out.
Yep, absolutely right. All right, so let's slide to the hockey.
All right, so the NHL, Bill Guerin has come out and basically said, and Leopold backed him up, that Kaprizov's going to be here. We're going to sign him, and nobody will offer more money. So basically, it's going to be like back up the Brinks truck for Kirill Kaprizov. Buy or sell that you're pleased to hear that.
I'm pleased to hear it. I mean, timing was perfect. Could you wait until Joe Polet was done talking about that and then say that? That made you even look even better. But here's the thing. I mean, take a breath. The Wild are the team that can offer him the most.
Right.
Like, they can offer him the most money. They can offer him the longest term because of the CBA. So the fact that they're going to go to the screws on the CBA is great, but it's not like basketball where they said, all right, so we're going to offer him the Supermax. Okay, that's not the same thing. I mean, so they are, but they need to sign Kirill, and they need to sign him for as much as they need to, and they need to sign him for as long as they can, because if they want a chance at a Stanley Cup, even with all the talent they're bringing up, he's the lead dog, man. And if you cut him, or if you lose him, that hole is going to be too big to fill just with one person.
So I agree with all of that, but I had a difficult time answering this with a firm buy or sell, because here's the thing. If he is going to be the centerpiece behind what they hope is a team that contends eventually, is he good enough? I think yes. But since you've come out now and said we're going to pay him as much as we need to, my fear becomes, what's he going to ask for? Because they are going to have a ton of money available. But if you tie it all up into somebody you've already had,
and you still don't have,
then I feel like you've got Kirk Cousins on a hockey team.
Yeah.
And when you say that, you still say, well, the Vikes were willing to back up the Brinks truck for JJ and everybody's thrilled. Okay, I get that too. But I go two different ways on this as well. Is he the kind of guy that can attract big names because they want to play with him? Or is it going to prevent big names from coming here because of his contract size?
Well, I think there's probably a little bit of both of that. One of the things I heard...
So I'm either buying on clearance or timidly selling is my point.
One of the things I heard from Judge Zelgad is we don't know him.
Right.
Like, he could be New York City or bust. I mean, he's savvy in the way that he hasn't, really expressed anything. So we don't know what his thought. We can't say, he wants to stay because we don't know.
Well, and again, with the money that they're going to have, this coming off season should be the most watched, maybe in Wild history, or at least akin to the Parisi Suter offseason. But my fear is, just again, like the Vikings with somebody like Kirk, what if their splashy play this offseason is, well, they just inked Kirill to triple digits and here we go. Kirill's not enough.
No, but I think that anybody that remembers Gabrick and when he left, how big the hole was,
right.
And it took us, 6-7 years to replace Gabrick. Kirill's better than Gabrick. And so I don't know how, unless they have a distinct plan behind him, I don't know how you don't do it, man.
And I agree with you. I hope Kirill is here. Please don't take my wondering as I don't really want 97. I certainly do. But I'm going to use Dave Cook's words against him just before he departs for St. Scholastica football. Here's my question as, again, I either timidly buy or timidly sell this notion. With Kaprizov, the Wild feel as though they have an ace in the proverbial deck of cards. Do you want that ace at a high price and then whatever you think you can put around him, or would you rather have two jacks and two kings instead of one ace kind of thing?
Well, I think that a couple things. One, you want the ace wherever you can. If you can get two kings for it, that's tough to say no. But with the money that's coming in and the salary cap going up, whatever you sign him for today is going to look bad. But the way things are going, it's not going to look bad for all that long. And I just think they've painted themselves into the Joe Mauer camp where they have to pay him. If you don't pay Kirill, you think we have apathy with the Twins.
I was going to say, great. Now Kirill will be hurt all the time and still get in the Hall of Fame right away.
Yeah, but do you think there's apathy with the Twins? If they let their best player go, unless the rest of them are really good, there's going to be a lot of Wild fans that say, the heck with this.
I was going to say, I absolutely want Kirill here, but I want a lot of pieces here, and we'll see what next offseason brings. First, we got to get this season rolling. The NHL is right around the corner. Speaking of right around the corner, CSS football is an hour and change away. That means Dave Cook will depart. I promise as I bump out with the song Happy, Dave, I'm not happy you're leaving. I promise you that.
I don't know.
Maybe there is a little method to my madness. I get Vencie Glenn all to myself for drawing lines when we come back. Dave, goodbye for now. I'll see you in an hour.
See you in an hour.
All right, we come back on the Northland Sports page with our favorite safety. We do the safety dance with Vencie Glenn. Stick around. And we're doing the safety dance with our favorite safety. It's Brian Prudhomme. Dave Cook was here throughout the show. He's got to leave for St. Scholastica football. Kicks off at 1 o'clock. I will have that game. I'll do the play-by-play online. But before that, we got to wrap up another edition of the Northland Sports page. We will do it with the drawing line segment courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio. And we do it with 2-5 Vencie Glenn. Vencie, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing very well. Always better when I hear your voice, and better coming off a Vikings victory. Another one last Sunday over the hated rival, the Packers. Tale of two halves. Tell me what you saw.
Just, it's, when you get up on a rival, it's kind of hard to sustain that momentum because they want to play well as well. Just two halves, man. Two different halves. I'm sure they would have liked to finish off a little better, but that's a good football team over there in Green Bay. They did go to the playoffs last year, so they know how to win and stay in big games and give yourself opportunities. It's all about management, man. How you manage the game and how you give yourself an opportunity at the end to win the game. As you saw in the Atlanta game the other night, it's just opportunities. You get opportunities, you can have a chance to win.
Absolutely. And if you want to switch to that real quick, Kirk Cousins got an opportunity late Thursday night, took advantage of it, 509-4 for number 8. Is he surprising you in Atlanta, or is it just a different fit, or is this a one-off?
Man, you can't give me $5 million to brag about Kirk Cousins.
I tried to bait the hook.
It was just poor football at the end of the game by Tampa Bay. They had the ball with 4 minutes to go in the game, down on the 7-yard line. They fumble. Kirk Cousins comes back, does what he always does, throws the interceptions. Tampa comes right back and messes up a whole drive, penalties and all, kick it back. They let them go down and score, and go in overtime, and it's good night. So it's just how you close out a game and stay focused, and Atlanta didn't stay focused.
Speaking of closing out a game,
Tampa.
Yeah, you're right. Tampa loses to Atlanta on Thursday night. Finally, a good Thursday night game. That's been hard to come by over the years. But speaking of closing out a game, the Vikings did do that. They hang on to win at Lambeau by a couple. Obviously built that big lead. As a former member of a defensive secondary, you play different with clock and score management. But have you been in scenarios where you're told to play different that early, and does it get frustrating when you want to keep a pedal down?
No. You just keep going at them, man. That's your philosophy. That's how you got there. Once you take that doubt away from your players, that aggressiveness, that's when you get in trouble. You have to stick to the game plan, but it's about making plays. If you're making plays in the first half, you should make those same plays or have an opportunity in the second, and they didn't. They didn't make the plays when they needed to.
Right.
And that it doesn't matter what the coach calls. If he calls a perfect defense and the guy messes up and lets the receiver go 80 yards, that's the wrong play to call? No, he missed the tackle. So it's really not about the philosophy. It doesn't change. It's just execution-wise. And that's why I say it's a game of execution. And those who are efficient, that means they execute most of the time.
So execution, a guy that's made a lot of plays is Aaron Rodgers, who the Vikings will face tomorrow morning when they play the Jets across the pond in London. With Aaron Rodgers, this is a guy who's seen everything. This is a guy who's not young anymore. It's a question of what he has left in the tank. But again, the resume, the ability, again, the knowledge of just about every defense you can throw at him is a little bit scary. Dave Cook, before he departed, says Aaron Rodgers will scare me until the day he retires. As an experienced Vikings fan, I kind of feel the same way. There are others that say he's a shell of himself now. What do you expect from Aaron Rodgers tomorrow?
Aaron Rodgers is terrified tonight. He has an aggressive defense that's going to come out and go after him. He's 40 years old. He doesn't move the same. So he's not going to take the chances that he used to take. His offensive line is no good. He doesn't have a running game. He doesn't have great receivers. So don't tell me Aaron Rodgers is the same when you don't have the same weapons and confidence around you. So they're going to hope they can create some kind of running game, but they're not, and the Wolves are going to come out on them. They're going to attack them. Minnesota's going to stay aggressive, and they're going to go after them. And it's just that simple. That's how they got 4-0, and they're not going to stop for Aaron Rodgers or anybody else.
I absolutely love that type of prediction. Speaking of establishing a running game, the Vikings have a new quarterback in Sam Darnold, but they have a new running back in Aaron Jones, and to me, Sam Darnold's been wonderful. Take absolutely nothing away from him, but the added wrinkle that just hasn't been there before, with all due respect to Dalvin Cook, etc., Aaron Jones seems to bring a different nuance to the way the Vikings can play offense. What do you like about him? Because if I'm asked that question right now, I say everything.
I really don't think it's the player. Dalvin Cook rushed for 1,000 yards his first 4 seasons. Kirk Cousins went to the Pro Bowl too. So you got 2 guys that was on the same team that were hell of a players. You know what I'm saying? So he had that luxury, and he had Diggs and those guys too. So it's really not about the individual. It's just the team concept, man. We just give too many guys. I mean, the offensive line is healthy; they're playing well, and that's the key. You got guys that are healthy and playing well, and when you got that combination of confidence as well, you got a team that's 4-0, and that's what I love about it. I don't give one guy credit. I give it to the team when they're playing well like that.
And this Vikings team is playing very well. Obviously, 4-0 is indicative of that. 5-0 would be wonderful. This is about the time of year that some of the quote-unquote pundits say the league is starting to take shape. We're going to see who has it and who doesn't. As a Viking fan, I'm sitting there kind of tempering my emotions saying, wait a minute, we've got 13 of these left. We've done nothing. Do you take it week by week still now as a former player? Obviously you did as a player. Or do you start to look at this looks like a playoff contender and this team doesn't? Or is it still simple as one game at a time?
I think you're human and you're going to probably consider all of the above. But how you go about doing it, you can think anything you want in your mind. Whether you do it or not, that's a whole nother conversation. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So how you go out and prepare and stay to what you've been doing, if you do that, that's a mute conversation. You can think about a lot of different scenarios. People do. You're human. So you're going to look at different scenarios. But, if you don't maintain that level of intensity across the board, special teams, offense, and defense, you're going to slip somewhere and probably lose some games and lose that edge. So it's all about keeping that edge. How do we stay focused? Keep doing the same things been doing, and get better at the simpler things. And that's how you get a 4-0 football team.
Absolutely. That's a big part of it. I want to ask about something you just mentioned, staying focused and not wanting to lose your edge. Even if the Vikings win tomorrow and the proverbial car keeps rolling along, they've got to hit the brakes because they've got a bye week. And obviously, coming back from playing a London game, calendar-wise, it makes some sense. But you often talk about injuries and conditioning and things like that. Is this bye week coming up too early?
No, you knew it was there. Whether you healthy or not going into it, nobody wants to be hurt going into a bye week. Oh, well, I want our team to be hurt, so we got a bye week so we can get healthy. Nobody. Then you want to be healthy going into a bye week. It makes it even better because they get the rest and they're healthy. It helps them out in the long run. So bye week's a bye week, man. You know when it's coming. It's not like a surprise. It's not like, hey, your boss say, hey, man, I'm going to give you a day off on Thursday, so don't come in. So it's just part of your job. You're not playing that week. Whether you're hurt or not, you find a way to get better. And I think that's all a bye week is. I think people make too much of it.
I'm glad you said that last part because I was just going to ask, even though the media, and granted I just did it, but coaches will talk about it too. They'll say, well, I'd rather have it in week 12 or 13 than week 6. But you think the players really, truly don't care?
You got to talk about it. So a coach is going to say, yeah, I'd rather have it then. If we're going to talk about it, yeah, I'd rather have it at the end when we can get some rest going into the playoffs. But what if you're a team that ain't going to the playoffs? That's just another week you got to endure out there not playing
right.
and knowing that you ain't going to the playoffs.
That's a good point.
It's like I say, it's a lot of conversation pieces out there, man, and I just try to stay away from it if it ain't got to do with football.
I drag you into some of those. I apologize, but at the same time, I love it. All of our segments with you are great as we do the drawing line segment with Vencie Glenn.
I love it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to close with this since you mentioned going to the playoffs. The NFC North, this division, actually looks pretty good. The Bears are winning in weird bear-like ways, but they're a 500 team. The Packers are plenty good, even though we saw them fall way behind our purple last week. They're a 500 team. Lions are a one-loss team. Vikes are undefeated. Did people underestimate the strength of the NFC North?
That's a good question.
Thank you, sir.
Only reason why I say that is because if they underestimate it, it's only because of the quarterbacks that are in the NFC North.
That makes some sense.
Goff, you got Donald, you got Willis, who's in for Love just coming back, and you got Goff, so and the guy in the Bears. So they're not great quarterbacks. They're good, can be efficient, but that's why when you don't have a Mahomes and Josh Allen in your league division, they're going to probably say you're not that strong, So it's all based off the quarterback, I think.
I think that's pretty well said because if you look at these quarterbacks on paper, obviously Caleb Williams as a number 1 pick was going to be unknown. I still think Jared Goff, no matter what the Lions do, never gets enough credit. Jordan Love, the big money, obviously the early injury. And Sam Darnold looks like an MVP candidate. He was supposed to be a huge, huge question mark going into the season. No questions about you. You are our MVP candidate. Vencie Glenn, thank you for another good day. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, pal. And I agree with everything you just said. That was good.
Hey.
I think that might have been the first time I agree with you on 4 different things.
There you go. Every once in a while, I get one right. 2-5, I love you. We'll talk next Saturday.
All right, man. Be good, pal.
Absolutely. That's our guy, Vencie Glenn. Thank you also to Dave Hoops. Thank you also to Mike Heffernan and Meatsauce Paul Lambert. Dave Cook, if you're still listening, I'm on my way. I'll see you soon. Another NSP is complete. Have a great weekend. Skol Vikes.